So this is genuinely one of my favorite episodes that I have recorded to date. TJ Power is the man. He's a neuroscientist at Dose Lab. He's a best-selling author of The Dose Effect, which I highly recommend. And he has over 1 million followers across all social platforms. He's been on Jay Shetty, School of Greatness, and a bunch of other great podcasts and platforms and live TV. He's kind of a big deal, but he's become a fast friend. He's one of the most humble, thoughtful humans I've met in quite a while. We're talking through this idea that the chemicals in our brain and body are kind of like honest friends, maybe too honest, and they're always trying to guide us toward our optimal experience of life. And when you align with what they want, they're the ones that nudge you forward, and say, nice work. But if we ignore them, we can be in for a very rough time. And the modern world encourages us to ignore them. And it can be difficult to push back and really listen to them. Before we get there, this episode is brought to you by Dreamfuel. You've heard me talk about them. They coach leaders and sales teams at some of the fastest growing tech companies on the planet. Companies like Owner, Clay, Pipedrive, Seismic, the list goes on and on. They have coached me. That's why they are a sponsor of this podcast, because I stand by them. They coach a ton of my friends now, and I've never heard anyone have anything but an incredible experience with them. And this is not sales training. This is teaching you how to master your nervous system and stay in flow state for long periods of time. And as a listener, you are eligible for a free one-to-one coaching session. There is no catch. Again, I hope that every one of you takes them up on it. When you're ready, you can go to dreamfuel.com/wakeupcall to claim yours. And this episode is also brought to you by Enfold. Enfold offers a world-class process utilizing 5-MeO DMT, and it is for those who feel a gap between who they are today and who they envision themselves to be. If you get this feeling that there's more for you in this life and you're ready to step into your full potential, this may be the portal for you. You can go to enfold.org to learn more. And of course, psychedelics are not for everyone. I get that. But they have played a huge role in my own personal journey. And I have come to believe they are at least part of the solution for some to live happier and healthier lives. So much so that I have joined their mission full time. And it has brought me so much joy and meaning seeing the transformations that take place each and every time we do an intensive. But that's it. That's all. Now on to my episode with TJ. TJ, what's up, brother?
Hey, man.
Happy to have you, man. I've been looking forward to this podcast for a little while, and I think you and I see the world in a very similar light, and we are thinking about a lot of the same things, but you happen to be a neuroscientist, whereas I know very little about what I'm talking about other than my lived experience. And there's so much I want to kind of dive into, but I think just like setting the stage a little bit for the listeners, who is TJ Power? Start with a softball.
Is that a softball?
It's not. It's like the hardest question.
Who is it? I'm a young man in my 20s that has recently become a dad and cares a lot about my health and my family's health, and have a deep relationship with nature and a growing relationship with God, and have spent many years over the last decade trying to just really understand, and this is where you and I bonded, trying to understand like how the accelerating nature of modern life is disruptive to the human experience, and how can we just build a brain and body that's going to be able to cope with it, because it's just going to keep being pretty fast and inevitably faster and faster. And I think it's magical that we get to be born and like have an experience of life, and I just like really want people to love it. And I think it can be easy to fall down a path of not loving the experience of it because of how dysregulating life can now be. And yeah, for my own personal life and then everyone I support with my work, that's kind of my goal.
Yeah. It's beautiful, man. And also a masterclass in decoupling your identity from your labels and your achievements is how you articulated that. You know, you're a humble guy, but you know, it's so cool to see the reception that your work has had with people, because I think it's really, really needed in the world. And you know, you are a neuroscientist at Dose Labs. You have an incredible book. Congrats on all the success. #1 Sunday Times bestseller. That must feel really good. And
Yeah.
you've been on like Jay Shetty, you know, the School of Greatness. Like it's really cool to see what you've been able to do. Co-founder at Neurify, and I really worked with some of the top companies in the world to discuss some of the things that we're gonna talk about. So let's get into it a little bit. So Dose, can you break down the work you're doing right now?
Yeah, so DOSE is an immensely convenient acronym for dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. These neurochemicals have become, I don't know, somewhat famous in the modern world. Particularly dopamine has kind of been discussed a lot over the last sort of 5 years or so. And for me, as someone that grew up just pretty addicted to any way to stimulate my brain, like whether that was like sugar as a young kid and then cigarettes and then smoking cannabis, alcohol, like I just really sought for stimulation. And maybe 7 or 8 years ago when I was studying at university, I first came across dopamine, and I'd never heard that word before. And I was like, oh, it's interesting. And like you can access dopamine kind of artificially, or maybe there's a more natural way to access that experience of reward and like seeking for things. And dopamine for me provided immense clarity on the nature of my experience as a human. And then as I got deeper into dopamine, I started thinking like what other chemicals might be impacting life. Came across oxytocin, which is more of this connection and love chemical. Serotonin, which is vital for stabilizing our emotional state, very connected to our nervous system. And then endorphins, this chemical that is deeply interconnected with our ability to cope and tolerate stress, cope with and tolerate stress. And DOSE has therefore brought these 4 chemicals together. We've then turned it into a psychological intervention where we've gamified the process of how does someone rebalance each of them. And then we're running research studies. We've just finished one at Southampton University in the UK, where we are measuring what kind of outcomes occur for people's lives if these chemicals get regulated in terms of screen time and motivation and attention and well-being and sleep. And we're seeing immensely cool data as to the changes that occur.
Yeah. Is it safe to say, you know, our body naturally has ways to regulate all 4 of these things, and humans in the right environment don't have to do a whole bunch of different exercises, practices to be regulated. But in the environment that we're currently at, where everything is vying for our attention, we now have the entire human history and knowledge at our fingertips. It's blinking, it's buzzing. Now, those chemicals are essentially being hijacked. Are those like fair statements?
Yeah, definitely. My fascination with this whole thing and how do you regulate these chemicals actually came when I was watching the movie Avatar. And I was watching Avatar a number of years back, and I was watching those blue people running around on that nature planet. What's it called? Pandora.
Pandora.
And had this like weird, like, instinctive feeling that maybe humanity either could have evolved into this like hyper-connected nature species, or maybe we also once were more connected to what those blue people are like in Avatar, and then it's kind of been lost as humanity have advanced technologically. And I then started just getting really curious. I started researching hunter-gatherer tribes and like shamans' wisdom, and I just trying to understand like what was the experience for humanity for the vast majority of human history. Because when you're studying the human brain, body, and nervous system, one thing that is very clear is it changes exceptionally slowly over time. You don't just suddenly have like massive anatomical changes in the brain over 30 years. It's a very slow process. And if we did one lifestyle for 300,000 years, really it's built for that experience. And in terms of then how these chemicals operate, when you were spending your days, like waking early with the sun, having to put a huge amount of effort into life, having to be deeply bonded with a small group of people, having to locate your food, only eat naturally, sleep and rest lots, spend lots of time in low stimulation, more boring states. When a human was in that environment, like the chemicals would just naturally operate. That has now radically shifted towards a life where you can get pleasure very easily, less sun, less nature, less connected, less natural food. And that's began to dysregulate the chemicals, which is why it now requires a bit more intentionality in order to get it right. And the final point on there is that I really fundamentally just see these chemicals as like our friends living within our brain and body that are honest friends that are constantly trying to guide you towards your optimal experience of life. And if you align with what they want, they will tap you on the shoulder and go, nice work. And they'll say that with positive mood and a calm nervous system and good sleep. If you go against what they desire, they will be, a truthful, honest friend that will make you feel, the real experience of the fact you've dysregulated what they want. So like a simple example of that is like a hangover. When you drink a load of alcohol, you feel like crap. But they're much more subtle than that. So like a lot of the low mood and the apathy and the potential like depression that may be coming because they don't like the fact we look at a screen for 10 hours a day when we don't necessarily need to do that, and at least as much as we do now. They will say, hey, not the right path for you. I'm going to make you feel this uncomfortable emotion until you steer more closely towards the path that would be optimal for us as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think that's a really good way to look at it. So just sitting with that for a sec. So we have these honest friends. I think most of us intuitively sort of know what they're trying to tell us. Like I think finally everyone's like, okay, I can't just binge watch Netflix for 5 hours after work and feel happy, or I can't just doom scroll and feel happy. But why sometimes are these honest friends tricking us into wanting to do that? There is this short-term, I think, chemical spike that I get when I'm busy day, and then I'm like, ooh, I could just sit on my couch and do nothing, and that feels really good for a very short period of time. And why are these honest friends sometimes tricking us?
Yeah, so of the four chemicals, the one that has a more deceptive nature is definitely dopamine. So dopamine's like the tricky one that like requires a really clear understanding of to see the truth of how it's attempting to guide you. And dopamine is this chemical that creates the desire to seek for anything. Like it's like makes us a seeker as a species. And like for our survival as a hunter-gatherer, seeking is everything. Like seeking good dry wood, seeking berries, foods, water, shelter. Like seeking is crucial. And in a similar way to something I once read in your work, we want like quite a significant gap, or at least we had for hundreds of thousands of years, quite a significant gap between like a desire coming, us then going into seeking mode, and then that seeking being fulfilled. And that would cause quite like a nice natural dopamine curve where like you suddenly feel the discomfort of I'm cold, a desire for I want to be warm is born. You then seek for like 3 or 4 hours, locate the wood, start the fire, like get that experience. And then you experience this like satisfying experience of the dopamine climaxing to being like, okay, cool, I'm now warm. the tricky thing about dopamine now is we can go into a state of I have desire, I want to seek, and then we can instantaneously fulfill it with the phone. And this is why I believe like technology is so disruptive to your capacity to achieve your dreams, because you want to let seeking like build and like brew within your body so it becomes like a very, very strong desire. So then you're going to put in a huge amount of effort to attain that goal. And if, say, for example, like I'm writing my next book at the moment, this morning, I've had this like seeking and desire growing within me, like I want to have a really good writing day today. And if I come home and then I'm like, oh, I'm just going to quick check of Instagram, a bit of Gmail, go on YouTube, just check my stats there. And like I fulfill that seeking desire too instantaneously. It then burns out the actual true desire I had to write the book. So I lose some of that. And in answer to your question there, because we've created this artificial way to access the fulfillment that we're looking for, it then tricks the brain. Like the brain can be somewhat corrupted, and we can speak into this because I don't believe the body can be corrupted in the same way the brain can with the dopamine. And just beginning to see the reality of that, like just beginning to get really honest with yourself. It's like, I think I'm fulfilling a desire far too instantaneously than what the brain truly wants is very important, because I too get very much pulled into these different things that can fulfill it much quicker.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Is dopamine, for example, do we wake up every day with like a finite amount of dopamine? And like, is it fair to say that every time we look at our notifications, and get that quick hit, are we spending our chemicals that we can't get back?
Yeah, it's a good question. We have an area of our brain called the ventral tegmental area, the VTA. And you can think of your VTA a bit like your dopamine factory. So let's change the name just to dopamine factory. In your dopamine factory, your brain literally has the capacity to manufacture dopamine vesicles. They're literally little bubbles. Next to your VTA, your dopamine factory, you've got something called your nucleus accumbens, which is your reward center. Throughout the night, one of the restorative processes of sleep is your brain will be manufacturing some of this dopamine in the VTA. So it'll be like literally building it for you so that you wake up with like some kind of desire and drive. Anytime you're doing something that's effortful, you manufacture even more of it, because the brain thinks, oh, their life is effort, so I'm going to make more of this effort-driven chemical to help them. So say, for example, I woke up and I went upstairs to the kitchen and like emptied the dishwasher and did the dishes. In that process of doing the effort, the brain goes, all right, they're doing something hard. I'm just going to make sure I manufacture more. Whilst you're doing the effortful thing, what it does is it like begins to drip feed the dopamine out of the factory towards the nucleus accumbens, the reward center. And it gives this little like enjoyable feeling within our body so that we keep doing it. So like as you clean the kitchen down, you're wiping the surfaces, it like feels kind of satisfying because your brain knows, like much deeper in our primitive brain, that like a clean, hygienic environment is advantageous to survival. And dopamine always comes down to the root of it's just trying to keep you alive. That's all it's trying to do, is keep you alive. In the scenario you mentioned there, like, can you spend it? What's fascinating is in the cleaning scenario, you're both manufacturing it in the factory, sending some to the reward center, but because you're putting in effort, you're remanufacturing what you're experiencing, what the reward is. If in an alternative scenario, I woke up and I was like, oh, I feel kind of shit today, I'm a bit anxious about something, I'm just like, grab my phone, I'm just like gonna go on TikTok. What would happen is my brain would go like, wow, this is stimulating and rewarding, it's novel. Novelty is a huge part of dopamine. It would then start shipping the bubbles towards the reward center. So you'd be like, oh, this feels pretty good. Like my stress has disappeared. Like it feels good. But because there's no effort involved in the act, the factory isn't manufacturing new dopamine. So then, to your scenario, you are spending the supply that is there. Then your factory gets very low in dopamine. And that state where you can't take action, where you're apathetic and you're like, I know I need to be doing stuff, but I just can't be bothered. So I keep going back to the phone or eating the sugar. That state is the VTA, like running low because not enough effortful action has taken place and too much quick pleasure has taken place. And then every day I'm always thinking like, how can I build a dopamine factory with like an abundance of dopamine so that I can draw upon it for the things that are important to me?
Mm-hmm. Really well articulated, man. And it just makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like then like the key drivers, and I talk a lot about, a lot of high performers are on this, and I do talk a lot about slowing down your pace of life with all this
Mm.
acceleration. But you don't want to strip away, like discipline and effort. Like doing hard things are really good. Doing hard things that maybe have a longer time horizon. That's how you're going to build a really powerful dopamine factory. Is that correct?
Yeah, because to an extent, I definitely would align with like in general, we want to decelerate our life in the modern world to almost counteract the accelerating nature of it. But you want to therefore decelerate how quickly you gain pleasure and reward from things. So like the
Mm.
experience of going for a 60-minute walk in silence with no phone is an effortful experience. You might be walking up hills, so it might be hard, but you're slowly earning reward from that. Or the simple one there of cleaning your house, like anything, or cooking like meals that take more effort to cook and require like more intentionality. Like you're trying to, slow down the time horizon to which it is that you receive the pleasure. So all the time you're looking for how can I feel good, but it takes a while to get to that point because that's just how the brain evolved. There was no such thing as like instantaneous pleasure for hunter gatherers. Maybe like occasionally they came across a beehive and they'd like eat some honey, but even to
Even that,
get,
you got to get through the fucking bees,
yeah, you've
Yeah,
got to go
yeah,
through like such immense like
yeah,
difficulty to get the
yeah.
bees to then access the pleasure. Like we're just not designed to have pleasure at our fingertips. And that is where like so much of the psychological difficulty is born out of in the modern world. Arguably, I would say like it might be the root of it is because like then that instantaneous nature of pleasure is distracting us from so much of the more important things in life. Like I did this detox recently from screens, and my partner and I have been living in this new house in Australia for about 5 weeks, and we had a bath together that evening because we weren't like going to watch a movie or like look at our laptops or whatever it might be. And then I had this like horrible moment of realizing that like we had lived here for 5 weeks and never had a bath together in this house. And I was like, how have we not had a bath together? And then like the reality and the truth of that is like she's like putting my daughter to bed, and then like in that little window, and like I finally finished work, I'll like want to watch some YouTube or something just to like have a little bit of that instantaneous pleasure. But in doing so, I've sacrificed like what arguably would be much more desirable for a human, like sitting in a bath with your partner is a much more beautiful experience, but like we'll sacrifice it because we're like, nah, I just want like some quick hit of pleasure. And like it's so
Mhm.
important to just like take a clear-eyed look at like how often are you sacrificing what I describe as oxytocin, like deep love, for just like a cheap instantaneous dopamine. And when you really look at your life, like it's surprising how often that is what is chosen.
Yeah, like scarily. Like if you
Mm.
did an audit on your life, like myself included, like, but we know, like I look around at the people in my life who I look at and I'm like, that person's like genuinely happy a lot of the time. And it's they're working towards these longer time horizons, and they don't seem so even like outcome based. Like someone's, a friend learning Brazilian jiu-jitsu and he just loves it, and it takes a really long time to progress in. And like people that learn the piano, not for some big, concert recital, like just because doing that is enjoyable, and I think these longer time horizons, like even now you're a new father, like raising a child with intention, you don't really see the fruits of that until they're much older,
Yeah.
and you see how you did. But man, I'm gonna feel humor me. I'm gonna like challenge you with a question, and
Yeah.
because you speak about this stuff so well. Those four chemicals you talked about, so dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and then endorphins. Let's pretend you are those chemicals, and we'll start with dopamine and like go down the list. If you are dopamine, what would you want us to know?
I think dopamine would just want I feel like it's like AA, like, hi, I'm dopamine. I want you to
We can
know.
do that. That would be dope.
I want you to know that, like, the truth in my heart as dopamine is that a good life will arrive if you consistently look for the emotional state of deep satisfaction. And if satisfaction is what you pursue, then I'll feel happy and pleased with that path that you take. And if you consistently engage with things that dissatisfy you, then I'm going to unfortunately make you feel like shit, because it's not what I'm looking for. Like, dopamine is fundamentally looking for the state of satisfaction.
That lands, and especially because you put that word, like, deep satisfaction, like that. There's a depth to it, and we all know reaching for our phones is not going to give us deep satisfaction. We know the feeling of deep satisfaction, like when you train all summer and your team goes to that tournament and you win the championship game, like that is deep satisfaction. Or, you work all quarter with your team and things aren't going your way, and then on the last day of the quarter that happens. Like, I think that's a really good thing to keep in mind. Like, if you want healthy levels of dopamine, pursue deep satisfaction over pleasure. Is that
yeah.
It?
Yeah, because pleasure is so complicated as an idea. Like, porn is pleasurable to watch, but like it's not deeply satisfying. That's for sure. There's like few things that are less deeply satisfying than porn. And even something like this, like, obviously quite current, is the experience of engaging with AI. And AI is, of course, like a deeply intellectual tool. I like to think of it as intellectual, not intelligent. But when you do something with AI, depending on the task, but if you really let AI run the show on something that is important to you, like a piece of writing or a particular like event you're going to deliver, or even like an email that's like really important to you to word in the right way, you might notice that there's like this like shift in how satisfying that experience has been. And I think like AI is a good case to like for humanity to get really on board with, because we're like now super familiar with like social media doesn't provide a deep satisfaction, but I think we're not yet seeing AI with enough clarity on that. And if, for example, I told like Claude the entire premise of my new book and asked it to like really support, like obviously it could nail it. Like it could write great sentences and it could be like, wow, it's super insightful. Like it's got some good ideas there. But like I would feel hollow as a result. And I think, yeah, with all aspects of the human experience, it's just like pondering like what provides the deepest sense of satisfaction. Because the interesting thing about dopamine is it's so wise in its capacity to guide us that even if you do something that follows the path of like it was effortful. So say, for example, you put a ton of effort into your career to earn a load of cash to buy like a really sick Porsche. That technically was like, yeah, that was a lot of effort. Like you didn't just get given the load of cash and then got given the car. So you might think, no, that would follow the dopamine horizon, that you think, oh, okay, so that would be making me feel good. But dopamine is wise. And if that wasn't what like it truly wanted for you in your experience of life, then it will still make you feel shit, even though you got all the way there. Like, and it won't tell you that that's a deeply satisfying experience. Whereas other aspects of your working life, you might put a load of effort in something and it might not necessarily have like the same like financial gain, but it might feel like deeply satisfying. Like, so constantly using the state of deep satisfaction as a compass in your life is super crucial.
Yeah. Good call out. This dopamine character, man, we got to watch him. He's like a trickster, but he's also like really wise and give it kind of the respect. I mean, experienced that firsthand. If you're somehow deceiving yourself in pursuit of a goal, it seems to know. I did the thing. I went and I had the career that people aspired to, and I raised all the money and hit all the goals, and it did not give me that deep satisfaction that I really, really, craved. And I guess from like a neuroscience perspective, like why does achievement fail so often to deliver the fulfillment we expect? Is it because we're deluding ourselves?
Yeah, it's funny. It's because at the core of like the dopamine mechanics, it's really important that like God or nature, like the universe, or like whatever like built this being that we live within.
Mm-hmm.
It's really important that from a dopamine perspective, nothing ever completely fulfills you, because otherwise it would turn off your desire for more. And when you were looking at like more of like a hunter-gatherer lifestyle, it was very important to like have a constant determination to continue to seek and strive, like so you don't reach a point of apathy. So say for example you catch a deer, like, yeah, cool. Like maybe that's like a week or two of food, depending on how cool you can keep the meat. And so that like that experience would be good. But it was very important, like the dopamine system would continue to go, no, that you're not done though. Like you've got to make fire, you've got to build shelter, you've got to get more food, you've got to get more nutrients. And the fascinating thing when you look into the graph of dopamine in terms of its activation with a specific experience is you might expect that dopamine kind of rises all the way to the moment in which you experience the reward and then it cools back down. That is actually not the reality we experience. We actually experience the greatest level of dopamine just before the thing is achieved. And then as it's achieved, quite a significant crash occurs. And then like a significant fall will happen. And this is like in sport, there's this big thing called gold medal syndrome, where someone wins a gold medal at the Olympics and then feels like actually quite low from the experience of it. But if you had asked them how they were feeling like 2 days before the race, they would have felt fucking good. They would have been like really motivated and excited and in this deep state of seeking. And it makes sense. Like if your objective is just to catch a deer, you don't need the maximum amount of motivation once you've got the deer. You need it in like the final 15 to 20 minutes of like the pursuit in order to get the deer. So there's a nature of dopamine whereby you will always crash to some extent when a goal is finished. The interesting interplay though is that oxytocin, the more like loving chemical, can help blunt that crash if you feel like there's a deeper element of service in the pursuit of the thing that you just achieved. And this is where it's crucial, because if you, say, for example, had like a financial goal and it was achieved, but there was also like a deep feeling of oxytocin of like, this actually feels like it's done something to contribute. And like oxytocin is arguably like an even more important chemical to human survival, in the sense that the whole objective of oxytocin is to help those around you survive with you. And like for a Homo sapien type species, we can't survive on our own. Like if you put a human on their own in the jungle, they're gone. But as a group, obviously, like we have a deep capacity to survive. So like oxytocin is constantly has it like sending you this underlying signal saying like, make sure what you do also helps others, so that like you don't find food and then just eat it all instead of taking it back to the group. Like this is so important for the survival of our species. So then if you're naturally like a seeker, like you want to pursue things, that's great. But you also want to make sure like, how is the thing that I'm seeking for going to be of service to others, to ensure that there's not like too much of I feel like shit every time I win.
Mm-hmm. That's fascinating. I know a decent amount about oxytocin, or I thought I did, but I didn't know that it's really the thing that gets us to motivate other people and help and support other people. It kind of leads me, is there studies showing that is dropping across the human species? Because it does feel like we're becoming more and more individualistic in our pursuits.
Yeah, so oxytocin is falling significantly as a result of the modern experience of life. And high oxytocin levels are directly correlated in research with pro-social behavior or like altruistic acts. And like this is all just like wired in. Like this is why a mum's oxytocin will increase significantly during the experience of being pregnant, to start like putting into her body that you're about to have to take care of a whole nother life, and it's going to be an immense amount of effort, and like I'm going to pump you with oxytocin so you've got it in you to realize that like you're not the priority for a period of time, and like this baby is going to need you. Like these are all just like wirings towards helping humans thrive as a species. And oxytocin wants huge amounts, like for its like just like baseline production, wants huge amounts of physical touch and eye contact and good quality conversation and laughter and love and feeling like you're being seen and seeing others and asking good questions and listening carefully. Like oxytocin just wants this like super present, like we're all safe together experience. And you like look at that reality that even throughout like the 1900s, like more recently, there was still huge amounts of like in-person social connection because like there wasn't a digital medium to achieve that goal. Now you can somewhat like partially satisfy like and trick your brain to the experience of like, no, I am connecting with humans because we're staring at humans on our screens all the time. So like our brain is like, yeah, I'm seeing humans kind of, but obviously they're never seeing you back, or these people that you're looking at on social media. So you're never actually feeling seen unless you get like a message or a like. And that's obviously like a very surface level moment of feeling seen. So then as a result, our oxytocin is getting lower and lower. As our oxytocin gets lower and lower, it actually puts us into like a more destructive nature as a species, because like you can imagine like a human that gets cast aside from a group and then has to fend for themselves within a hunter-gatherer tribe. They're going to have to go into a much more like aggressive type nature in order to try and survive that environment. So the more individualistic we get, the lower our oxytocin becomes, the more kind of like hateful and aggressive we become. And like you can see that in society, like we're getting this experience of like a more like aggressive, divided type experience, which is actually exactly what would happen in the animal kingdom if you were on your own. And this is the nature of like, wow, we got to make sure we get this oxytocin back in the game if we want like a more cohesive experience.
Yeah. Again, when you put it that way, I'm like, yeah, if you're on your own, you need to turn basically back into an animal. You need to be aggressive.
Yeah.
You need to only think of yourself like it's pure survival again, as it should be in that alternate universe where we're back to being hunter and gatherers. But now we just see it in hateful comments online and, polarizing politics and all of this stuff.
And hate online is an interesting one because it seems to be a rising tide, the hate online. Like it seems, even people I see, like I'll see someone's profile that's just like just like a loving, kind human that like doesn't seem like someone that you could like hate on, and you can still go into their comment section and like people have found a way to hate. And there's like a hate comment, and I have like 350 likes. And you think, wow, like it's fair. And when you're cast aside as a person in a hunter-gatherer tribe, your objective is then like, how can I like try and get seen again? Like humans fundamentally need to be seen. Like if you take it back to like a baby, like Skylar, my little daughter, like she needs to know that she's being seen very regularly to feel safe. So I literally just have to like look at her just so she knows, like, the guy that's bigger than me is looking at me. So like maybe some danger around me can't get me. Like it's pretty basic stuff. And I think one of the elements of like being hateful online is like, it's actually just a outcome of wanting to be seen. So by leaving a hateful comment, eyes are going to come towards you. So then you're going to like have a moment of feeling seen. Whereas if someone is in their normal like life experience feeling very seen by like their friend or their kid or their like partner or whatever, they might not feel as much like I need to try and intentionally get seen through hate. And I think there's actually like a really interesting dynamic. Like when you go into like who is being quite hateful online, who's not being hateful, there's a significant pinpoint of like, is that person feeling seen in their real life?
Yeah, it is crazy. I'm sure you even get the hate if for like just trying to explain. Like my article, I wrote that that reached a lot of people. I think the number one most liked comment is like someone just trying to tear it apart and be like, there's so much bigger problem. Like, this is just genuinely my perspective of like really trying to help, but it's
that individual like may have like a sense like just like wanting to make sure they feel seen, which is like, it's just fair. It's like, it's nice to feel seen. And like, I too get hate. I live in the constant hate of like people thinking it's deeply ironic that I'm talking about how to manage screens by distributing that information on a screen. And like, I understand it. Like, it is ironic, but it's like,
but how else are you supposed to get the message?
Like, how else can I share?
Go knock on doors, man. Don't be lazy.
I know. I could just like walk down the street and be like, how's your phone addiction? Next house. How's your phone addiction? But like, so yeah, like I experienced these comments too, and it's like I have learned to just like understand it.
I think it's a beautiful way to increase empathy, is that what you just explained. It's like, oh, okay, this person is likely not being seen in their life, and maybe this will provide them some short-term relief. All right, let's go back to the exercise. So now you're embodying oxytocin. What does oxytocin desperately want us to know?
It wants you to... Hi, I'm oxytocin. I really want to love people. Like, I want to like pour out this abundance of love I have within me to people. And I want to like literally make people feel seen, ask them questions, listen to them, support them, serve animals, serve nature. Like I want to co-create with this world and like ensure that more love is here as a result of my presence, of the fact I am at my core basically love. And in doing so, I as oxytocin would also love to receive that back. So I'd also like love people to listen to like what I have to say and see my contribution, see my service, like experience gratitude towards me as a result of it. So there's like this symbiotic relationship of I'm going to give and I'm going to receive, so that collectively we can feel our best. And then in feeling our best, that's going to be of greatest service to us having a good experience and serving like this world that we are here on. And one of like the most like fundamental components of oxytocin is like acknowledging people and celebrating people, and then as a byproduct like maybe feeling celebrated ourselves. And if you look at like the characteristics of someone that like strives so hard, like I need dopamine, like one day this will fill the void within me, and never can, that might coincide with someone that has grown up striving and has had like maybe like a parental experience or a school-based experience where like they didn't like get like fully acknowledged for all the effort. So they thought like, maybe if I just do more, like then I'll get acknowledged. And it can create like this void, like we try and fill like an oxytocin void with dopamine, and like they just don't go together. Like there's not like a magnetic connection there that will like this thing can fill up this thing. And let's say like with the example of raising Skylar, like she's currently 5 months old, so like she's not doing too much effortful experiences. But gradually I'll want her to like maybe like come to the beach with me and like swim in the cold water. And like that'll be like scary and hard. And like in Australia you can get eaten by sharks, so we'll do it in the nice like shallow bit of the water, but it will still be scary. And one of my like things with her, like as she grows, will be like just making sure like I'm constantly acknowledging her, so that she understands like it's like really cool like what you're doing. And like I'm not just like creating this energy of like I'm your dad and you need to keep doing more to please me, and you're like perfectly good with like all you are already. Like a human wants to feel that, and that extrapolates to like relationships as well. Like it can be really easy to just kind of live so busy in the dopamine world that you're not like sitting down and just like acknowledging your partner for like everything they are to you or to your family or to your kids or to their job. Like acknowledging people is what oxytocin wants.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, first off, your daughter's super lucky to have you and understanding all these things and thinking about them deeply. And
Appreciate that.
so it feels like if I was going to point to one thing in the world that could have a really measurable impact would be just, okay, how do we increase oxytocin levels? That feels like a really, really noble pursuit. How can you do that? So acknowledging your partner, is this, I do see, less people going to church and things like that, as religion kind of declines, like those things, being in community, is that like really how you build oxytocin and really being seen in and amongst a group?
Yeah, I think to that point, atheism is no good for our oxytocin. That's for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Like going towards like pure atheism is cause significant distress to that part of us because like deeper in us there is a more divine or like a deeper consciousness, like however people would like to like kind of explore that. There's something within us that like is seeking for something beyond the purely material experience. Like there seems to be, like I think many people would agree there's energy in the world. It's like you sit with someone and you think, oh, I feel good energy with this person or like bad energy with this person. And like that's something like in the immaterial landscape that we can't see and science is yet to fully comprehend. And the atheistic nature of like not believing in anything and therefore not coming together collectively to believe in something is challenging for oxytocin because oxytocin loves the idea of like, I'm in a group and we all believe in this together. And that is why, like with the atheist rise, we have seen a like correlatory rise to new ideologies being born as something you can feel like you're a part of and you believe in together. Some of those new ideologies like may be quite destructive like to the human experience, but they're like, I'm in a group and I believe in something, and oxytocin loves that. And then at the more basic level, going to church and praying together and being grateful together and singing together and making each other feel seen is like, that's what the brain wants. Like it wants to be like that. Tribal species, like hunter-gatherer species, they had like a much more spiritual nature to them, a deeper connection with the stars and with the trees and with the birds. And like there was this like experience that was like much more mystical there. And as you shared, community is like so fundamental, and it'd really be nice like with this oxytocin question is there if there was like some secret trick or hack that's like that'll do it. But it is the simple stuff of like, are you making people a priority in your life? And what I found really interesting in writing my new book is I'm thinking like, just figuring out how much of this I can share, but like let's feel into it, is does it feel for you in your life like humans are the center of your reality or screens are the center of your reality? And like I've been really pondering this because you would think, oh no, I would like a life where like humans are the center of my reality, probably. Like you probably don't like think, oh yeah, I'd love it if like screens were my main thing. But then if you actually like, really observe your experience, you may discover like screens are the center of your reality now. And that's like, we're not getting lots of oxytocin off a screen. And I then started to question, like, how could I increase the amount of time in my day that humans are at the center, like, of my attention, effectively? And one of the like easiest ways I've done that is talking to strangers. And that like sounds like a confusing sentence. And like, I wouldn't recommend getting all your kids to do this, but this is like an adult experience that you can do where you talk to strangers. But I've like made it a really conscious process where if I'm in a supermarket with the cashier or a barista in a coffee shop, especially if you go to the same coffee shop regularly, like build a relationship. Even today, this morning, I sat at a coffee shop, talked for like 15 minutes with a guy called Steve, who was 71 years old, who was a drummer, and he actually played at Glastonbury, and now he lives out here in Australia. Talked to him all about just like random stuff. And like often, because like I have this like deep need to feel like I have to be productive and successful to fill a void within me that won't fill, I would take my laptop to a coffee shop. But like, so I've started like thinking, okay, like can like more moments in my day be human centered? And then like I came away from this conversation with this Steve dude just like feeling really good. Like I felt like really like, to return to the original idea, like deeply satisfied by that conversation. Not because it like leveled up my life in any way, but because it just like met a need that is there. And I could also feel like for him, it was like really nice. Like he was like really interested in Skylar. Like found it really funny, like smiling with her. And I would say like right at the center of oxytocin is like, how much can you build a relationship with those that are like physically close to where you live, basically, because it's going to make you feel like you're much more part of a tribe and that there's a collective around you. And I think that is getting so lost in the modern world where people don't even like know the name of the people that live in the house next to them. And that's like a very common experience. And that's just like not what our nature necessarily wants.
Yeah. I've really noticed this coming back from my travels, and I'm on Vancouver Island now for a little bit, and I joined this community center, and it's mostly old people. So I kind of stumbled upon the same thing, not because I went in with this great, like, I'm going to talk to strangers, but older people, they naturally do this, you know? Most people are like 70 plus, and they'll look you in the eyes and say hello. If you go to, I've been to other gyms here, like, everyone's headphones in, no one is talking. 0 people are talking. But here, everyone's talking. I've been like swimming laps every morning, and there's old ladies next to me that will like stop me basically mid lap and just like want to chat. And it does make you feel incredibly good. And then, you know, I look back at before I sold my house, like I truly, I knew like one neighbor, you know, and if they were outside, it was like an inconvenience. And it was like this like selfish feeling that it didn't make me feel good, you know? And so, yeah, it's all so simple and so hard to execute for some reason, you know? But okay, so moving on, serotonin. Let's embody serotonin. What does this little guy want us to know?
Okay, hi, I'm serotonin. Honestly, the only thing coming through to me is I want to climb a tree. Like that.
I love that. It feels like the most direct, honest answer of you're actually channeling serotonin.
Like, that's what serotonin wants to do. Like, I want to climb a tree. Like, I want to have my like hands and feet on a tree, and I want to climb this tree. And maybe I want to climb the tree because there's like some cool berries on the tree, or it might give me like a good way to survey the nature around me by climbing this tree. And after I've climbed this tree, like I might want to like jump in a river to like clean or like refresh or look for fish. And after I've done that, like I want to like get some sun on my skin to warm me up, and like just like instinctively I know, like because I'm a hunter-gatherer, like I don't necessarily know about vitamin D yet, but I just know like, wow, this feels like it's energizing for me. It's just like sit on this rock in this sun like all animals do. And I want to eat the natural foods, and then I want to like lie on grass. I have my hands, my feet, my legs on the grass to like restore me through the earth. Like serotonin just like deeply wants a natural experience of life to like constantly recharge the batteries. And serotonin is like directly interconnected with our nervous system, therefore like our emotional state, and then also deeply interconnected with our energy, because those are kind of just like one system. Like if our nervous system is regulated and experiencing like restoration, then our like emotions are like much more stable. And as a byproduct, like we have much better like energy and like vitality in our system. And if it's the opposite, that our nervous system is like running super fast, then our emotions are very distressed, it's freaking exhausting to be in that state. So our energy is very tired. And we have these 8 baseline metrics that we look at in dose across the 4 chemicals. There's 2 in each chemical. So dopamine, for example, is motivation and attention. Oxytocin is relationships and confidence. Serotonin is energy levels and mood. Of our 8 metrics, and we've taken 108,000 people through this research, energy is the lowest number across the data. Like the thing that people are struggling with most, at least in our lab with what we see, is energy. And I see that as like deeply connected with a reduction in serotonin production, and that kind of interconnected. And as a byproduct, like a nervous system that is just in complete overdrive, and therefore your experience as a human is just exhausting because you feel constantly in fear, basically. And the thing that would make you not feel that level of deep exhaustion is as simple as climbing a tree or lying on some grass with your shoes and socks off. Even if you live in a city, like you can get to a park and you can take your shoes and socks off and you can lie there and not dopamine your brain while you lie there with your screen, but just lie there and let your being unplug in order to recharge from the earth. That's what serotonin would love.
I love it. I love it. I feel like I'm in my own journeys just stumbling upon these things. So something, again, I'm doing recently. You can tell me if this is producing serotonin, because it feels like it is. So when I'm feeling scattered, I don't know what it is. Sometimes I just like get too hyped up if I'm working too long, and I can now at least sense it when I'm like, oh, I'm off, and the tasks are taking too long, and I'm switching between things. And, I used to go and sort of force myself to meditate, but that wasn't really working. I was still scattered, and I have a meditation practice. It's wonderful, but I do it not in these times. And so what I started doing is I have a little easel set up in the garage here, and I will go and I'll just paint, not because I'm a good painter, not for any reason other than just like expressing myself and like having fun. I find it enjoyable. It's usually pretty abstract. And the amount of like energy and clarity I get, and it can be 15 minutes. Sometimes it can be like 10 minutes. Is that producing serotonin, that like play-like energy?
Yeah, that is. And that's like, there's a creative element of serotonin. Like deep in our nature, we are such a creative being. Like that's how we were able to like construct all these ideas of these tools that we could make, and how we could like learn to like write and create language. Like we're like a deeply creative being, and a huge amount of that creativity is not just like our brain logically doing it. It's more like an expression of our body. Like you might feel that when you paint, like if you really try and like intentionally use your brain to make it good, it might create a certain vibe. And then if you just like let your body kind of just like be, and like you flow with the art, you get like this like more beautiful expression of your creativity. And 90 to 95% of the serotonin that is in us as a human is made in our body, not in our brain. And like so our body like wants this experience of like a little bit like earlier, like being seen and like being utilized. And like as a hunter-gatherer, your body was just used all the time. But now we've become like quite a head-based species, whereby like we spend so long on our computer, and we can reach this like point where we spent so long on the screens and we feel so overstimulated. And definitely, for example, meditating is like very hard in that state, because like you have literally been artificially stimulated beyond your capacity. So then like it's very hard for the brain to like know what to do with that. And the goal is then like, how can I like come into the body in some way? So like it might be getting your bare feet on the ground, it might be like moving your body, like dancing it rhythmically, but also like an artistic expression would be magic, because you're literally using your body to create the art. You're using your hands, you're tuning into sensations in your body, you're tuning into kind of the like the control of your body, that your hand-eye coordination. And what's fascinating there is like we also like obviously storing a lot of like our emotional experience in the body, and the body like wants to like literally get it out of us. And then like in that process that you might have just like got a little bit stressed in the day, like a few different emails, and like it's a bit annoying. And then like the body's like, I'm just gonna have to sit with that. Like it doesn't get a chance to move it. And you might find in the creation of the art, like you move a bit of that through, and then like your nervous system comes back online in a better way, and your energy comes back.
I think I just want to say how much I appreciate, you're a scientist, by education, and you have all of this knowledge on these chemicals. But I think a lot of time these conversations are like, they kind of sound like, okay, you're a meat suit with chemicals and you just need to figure out these chemicals. And I love that, that is true and we need to understand them, but that you think deeply about things like creativity and movement and dancing and getting into your body, and even the God piece and the spirituality. Like those two things don't often come together, and I really appreciate it, man. It's cool to hear someone know so much about something, but also see these other things that are not always as easily pointed to with scientific evidence.
Yeah, it's funny because like I've thought about this myself a lot, because like looking at the body and the brain like through chemicals is of course by nature like a reductionistic approach. It's like it's reducing humans down to chemicals, which is very simple. But I think the human experience in the modern world is complicated. Like it is tricky. Like, and as we described earlier, like there's a deceptive nature of the like dopamine system. Like it's hard to get it right. And rather than seeing these chemicals as like the final piece of understanding of the human body, of like, yeah, so if you just know these chemicals, then you're good. I more see them as like cool doors to open into the human brain and body. Like they're cool, like you can see these 4 doors and it's like, wow, if I open that door, there's like all this mystery like in there that's like really cool to understand about the human experience. Then in oxytocin there's different stuff. So I more see them as like a starting point that opens your interest into the human experience rather than like the end point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Even the way you describe them more as like friends, and they're all part of you. They are the essence and magic of being humans, which is cool. All right, our last one. We haven't talked a ton about Mr. Endorphin. What does Mr. or Mrs. Endorphins wanna tell us?
As endorphins, I just want to be like really physical. Like I want a physical experience of life. Like I want to like chase like a human. Like I want to run fast. I want to like run down a hill. I want to do things that are kind of like risky. I want to, yeah, just like release like the more animalistic part of myself. Like I really want that to like still be present in the modern human experience. Like I want to like take an axe and like chop wood, like with a lot of physicality, and like serotonin too, like some movement. And there's also of course like an interplay between these chemicals. It's not like one is one and one is the other, but like serotonin like wants like just like move around nature, like walk and like be in the beauty of nature, whereas like endorphins wants to like really run and be physical in the nature. And endorphins like can struggle with like stress building in the system and then like not being like moved through. The reason I say this is like the most rapid way to like de-stress the human body is from a chemical nature, is through endorphins. And what I mean by this is if someone was really like stressed and overwhelmed, what I wouldn't initially tell them to do is just like sit and like focus on their breathing and try and regulate their nervous system, whilst I do believe that would be an essential component in the journey, first I'd get them to try and like move the stress like out of them a little bit, so then they can sit down and experience the peace of the relaxation. The reason this is so crucial, like evolutionarily, is stress for 99.9% of human history was a physical experience to navigate. It was like hunger, it was danger, it was humans and other tribes trying to get you, it was animals trying to get you, it was you trying to get animals. But like those were the things that were stressful, and they would have been freaking stressful. And then when you were stressed, it required running and fighting and hiding and climbing. Like it required a physical experience. And as that like stress was born within your awareness, your then body experienced like the cortisol and the adrenal activation, you went into this more like physical nature. And in that moment, to help you survive, endorphins would release throughout the brain and body to help you have resilience to that experience that was taking place within you, so that you'd have optimal chance of survival. So that you didn't just go like, oh my God, I'm so stressed, I'm so hungry, like I can't do this anymore, I'm done, I'm just going to sit here and I'm just going to starve to death. Instead, your body would go into action even though it's so hungry and stressed, and endorphins would actually create some level of euphoria in the difficulty to really maximize the chance of you surviving that. And that's where like runner's high and stuff come from. Now in the modern world, we've shifted stress from a physical experience to a mental experience, whereby we're no longer stressed by animals and predators and like so much intensity of like hunger and needing to locate food. And we're more stressed by political division and like money coming out of our bank when we didn't expect it to, and an annoying email and a client cancelling, and like a text we get from our family member that just like annoys us. So then like stress arrives in the mind, and then the endorphin system is like, okay, they're getting stressed, like it's time to activate. I'm going to help them with this experience. And then, but then the stress arrives and we just sit dead still, continuing on the screen. And the endorphins are like, guys, I'm here. Like, I'm ready. Like, I can help you here with this stress. But like, the only way they're going to like be able to help is if your body starts moving. So then they're just like, what the fuck? Like, why haven't they used me? Like, I'm so good at de-stressing them. Like, I'm here to help. And so therefore with the endorphins, like a classic like symptom of low endorphins would be one, stress, but would be like an anger within you. Like, I feel like annoyed at life. I feel stressed and irritable and And like, I get that state, like I'll get that tension within me. And rather than just like initially like, okay, I'm going to sit on the sofa and I'm just going to try and like get rid of this through regulation. First, I will just like get out of the house and like run up a hill, or like try and do a load of press ups, or literally jump up and down, or even like run up and down my staircase. Ridiculous, I know, but it's like, then my endorphins are like, cool, like I'm here to like help move this stress through you. And then once they've moved through you, you can then do more of the regulatory things, like sit on the sofa and like calm the body down. But I think we just haven't seen with enough clarity in the modern world that like that tension and stress and anger within you can't be eradicated through our screen, which is what we like to believe. It's like, I feel this way, so I go on the Instagram reels, and then, well, I'm not feeling that way anymore, so it must be gone. But really, it's just like you're pummeling your brain with dopamine, so therefore you can't feel it because dopamine is so all-consuming. But then the stress is like, no, I'm still here, just so you know. Like, and I'll come back as soon as you put that phone down. And then you put the phone down, it's like, I'm here. And then you're like, fuck, I'm all stressed and angry again. So it's like endorphins are like constantly like, how can you just like literally get it out of you?
It's so fascinating, this idea of stress really getting trapped in our body. And as I've embarked on this journey and I talk to all of these successful people who are going through transitions or they experience burnout and all this stuff, almost every single one, which is like, I do not think widely talked about enough, talk about deep physical symptoms of like their body shutting down or getting crazy rashes or not being able to unclench their jaw, like these very physical, or like not being able to open their hands. Like these are physical symptoms of like chronic stress. And, you know, our work at the Enfold Institute, like when someone is releasing that, you see that it's physical. It's not getting released from the mind. It is physically coming out in all these ways that look like an animal would be getting rid of stress.
Yeah.
It's really wild. It's really, really wild.
I feel like sorry, were you going deeper there?
No. Go ahead.
I feel like there's just such a unmet conversation of the body in general in this like whole exploration of the human experience, because we almost seem to think as modern humans that we're sort of a brain with a body attached to it. But I actually hold almost like the opposite view. And this is like almost funny as like a neuroscientist. You think, oh, he has to be just like a pure brain guy. But I almost think we're more of a body with a brain on. And neuroscience isn't just the study of the brain, it's the study of the entire neurological experience of a human. So it's the body, the nervous system, the vagus nerve, the enteric nervous system. It's the gut, it's everything. When you look at the vagus nerve, for example, which is the nerve that connects our brain and body together, 80 to 90% of the information that travels the vagus nerve is upward from the body to the brain, not downward from the brain to the body. Wow. So that means like of all the communication taking place within your brain and body, 80% to 90% of it is coming upwards, not downwards, which actually would hold like a paradigm shift of the idea that like the body is actually the thing running this show, and like the brain is here to be like this really intellectual computer on the top, which is it's a great computer. And like for a hunter-gatherer, they weren't led by their brain. They didn't like sit there like in deep logical analysis, strategizing, like maybe we'll go to that area of the jungle. No, actually, like it was just like their body, just like it just pulled them, and their brain was there as this like really cool like addition to make it all happen. But they like were led by the body. And I think in the modern world, we're just like completely led by our brain now. And I don't think that's necessarily the path to the optimal experience. Like whenever you have a big decision to make, like I've just gone through the big decision of moving to Australia, for example. And like that was massive. Like my career's like was really thriving in England, and like there was a dopaminergic, egoic experience of like, no, I should stay in England. I could like maybe make more money here, or like maybe I'll be more famous here. Like all those like voices that can fool us. But then like I just like I spent some time like feeling into like what does my body really want, not just for me but for my partner, for my like daughter that I'm raising. Like what is the truth here? And I could only find the truth in the decision by the body calling the decision, not the brain. Like the body had a deep instinctive feeling. And the funny part of this is, since being here, it actually seems that my career might actually become more successful as a result of being here, because my body's going to be happier and therefore it might create in a better way.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the thing that led the decision. The thing that led the decision is like, what is my body saying to me? And I walked for hours, 50 hours maybe, like feeling this decision over the last year of like what feels good here. And like I let the body call the decision and not the brain. And like I think so much in life, like with our careers, with our relationships, with parenting, with even just like the daily little decisions you're making, I think our body should be allowed to have a voice much more than it does.
Yeah, really well said. I think, yeah, we're under this illusion that the body is the servant of the brain, and it's very much the other way around. If like who's usually in charge? It's usually the one like giving out the orders. And if 80 to 90% are coming from the body to the brain, that's where it's getting its, orders from.
Yeah, I love that book, The Master and His Emissary, by that Ian McKilgrist, which is about the right and left hemisphere of the brain, like which one is the master and which one's the emissary. And we now, like, to some extent, like, would feel like that the brain is the master and the body is the emissary. And like, I've been just like really exploring personally in my own life, like what happens if you reverse that? So like, even when I wake up in the morning, my brain goes like, I should gym to build my muscles, or I should like work immediately because that would be good. So like whatever my brain says, like I think, no, we just can leave that for a sec. Maybe that's the truth, but I'm gonna just like let ask my body, like, what does my body really want right now? Does it want to like give attention to my daughter, for example, which is often funny because that's often what my body will say. My body will say like, no, just lie and like look at your daughter and like make her feel seen. But my brain will be like, no, I need to like achieve. I need to achieve stuff. But arguably that is achieving probably the most important achievement I could have. So I think there's this element of like how can you just play with like letting your body run the show? And the only thing I would say with that is sometimes when you first open your eyes to that idea, you kind of listen to the body and it doesn't actually have anything to say because you haven't been tuning into it too regularly. So it's like, okay, so like those dudes talked about like tuning into the body, and then you tune into the body and it's like, I feel nothing. And just like I'd be aware, like just like building a friendship with a human being, like it just takes time and presence and attention. And then like a relationship is built. The same is true of the body. So it's like the more you just pay attention to it, the more it speaks to you.
Yeah. Great call out. I think over this last year, I got like reacquainted with my body in a really beautiful way. But then I also realized that I had been completely disconnected for, I think, like 5 or 6 years. And we're not also talking about just like, you can have a physically healthy body and still not be connected to it. Like I still went to the gym, I still did that, but I could not listen to what it was telling me in any way, you know?
Definitely. That's very true. I've done this. Like I did that kind of like the bodybuilding protein shakes thing where like physically I would have looked like, yes, like the body is happy. But I think my body was actually probably one of its most unhappy when I was actually doing that to it. So like there is it's an interesting exploration. And one of the final things I'd say on this master and a mystery idea is whilst looking at like who's the master in my own individual experience, I've also been pondering in my relationship with technology, who is the master and who's the emissary. And like as I've had to unpack that, I have found myself as the emissary more than I would necessarily want to be, and found like, wow, it actually feels like technology is the master. And that is a funny thing to like unpack, like who's actually in charge here. And like the only way you're the master is if you have the ability to not go on it, and like when you want to. And like if it always wins, then you're like definitely obviously not in charge of that relationship. And I think whether it's like waking up in the morning and not going in the screens, or like on the weekend, could you like turn your phone off for a whole Saturday? Or when you're with people, like, is it easy for you to just not check it even when the curiosity spikes in your mind as to whether that client replied or that girl replied or whatever it might be? And like, it's a funny game to play with yourself to just like discover like who's the one running the show here.
Yeah. I often think of if like an alien species came down and observed us and knew nothing about natural life or what was different between technology and biological life. I mean, all of our attention flows, you know, and so where your attention flows is usually like what you worship. They probably would think these little things are like our gods that we like, you know, check in all of the time, you know, and like every spare moment you have to like, you check in with your little god and make sure it is happy with you. It's fascinating. All right, I could talk to you literally all day, man. I really have enjoyed this conversation. One more question as we wrap up. For those who are really resonating with a lot of the things we're saying, and of course it takes so much intentionality to shift your life and to pay attention to these chemicals. But are there like 3 things that people can do that will have a just noticeable impact on regulating these chemicals?
Yeah, I would say number 1 would be, do you know what's funny here is I'm trying to let my body answer this question, not my brain.
I love it.
Number 1 would be ensuring that you have a screen-free bedroom. So no TV, no iPad, no phone in your bedroom. And like there's a wrestle that is required to make that a reality, of alarm clocks and how do I get myself to fall asleep without sound, and can I cope with the boredom of lying in bed without YouTube? And how am I going to answer the emergency calls that don't come? So there's a wrestle, but it's a wrestle that like you must win if you would like your like chemicals to operate well. So that'd be the first one. And it is winnable, definitely. The second one would be a daily practice of walking in a natural environment without a phone in your pocket or headphones in your ears. So that would just be like some time with yourself. I mean, my walks are now with a baby attached to me, but she doesn't talk to me too much yet. So it feels like somewhat time with my own being. And that should be like a daily practice, like a minimum of maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Ideally, you leave the phone at home. If your mind somehow can justify that that isn't possible, you could put it in a bag.
I can assure you it's not impossible. Whatever you're being tricked by your brain. If whatever your brain is telling you, it is lying to you right now.
It's lying. And then so that'd be like 1 and 2. And the reason like these seem like simple practices, but ultimately they're gonna like connect you more deeply into the truth of your reality, because you're gonna spend more time with yourself. And like that's what like we fundamentally need in a world where we're spending all of our time with our screen. And then the final one would be taking on the adventure. This could maybe be a once a month activity. And I call this the 9/9 dopamine detox, which is 9 p.m. on a Friday night to 9 a.m. on a Sunday morning where you don't look at a screen. And this one is hard. It's not like an easy thing to do. The brain will have a lot of reasons as to why you can't do this one. And you could do this with your family. You could do this on your own. You could tell your family if you don't live with them, just so you know, like I'm doing this dopamine detox. You turn it off on Friday night. You go to bed like basically straight away because it'll be boring without it. And you wake up on Saturday and you're like, cool, like the hell am I going to do today? Like normally I'd like watch a little bit of YouTube or check my Netflix or get consumed by Instagram or go on my email. And you're just going to have to, you know, have your credit card with you, so like you don't have to use Apple Pay, and you can still drive to the shops and you can get a coffee and you can go for a walk and you can go to the supermarket and you can buy yourself a nice meal and you can go to a bookstore and hang out there because that's a good place to just feel good. You could buy a book, you can come home, you can lie on the sofa, you could nap more that day. You just got to get all the way through that day and then you go back to bed, and then the next day at 9 o'clock you can turn your screens back on. And that journey is like just so tremendous in course correcting your connection to yourself, your connection to what these chemicals are deeply desiring, without the screen like artificially satisfying that which you seek. Your chemicals will come online and tell you what they really want. And they might want you to sleep. They might want you to like eat certain foods. They might want you to walk in nature. They might want you to go see a certain friend. And like you can do that. You can arrange on the Friday to see a friend at 1 o'clock at a certain place and just tell them like, be there at that time, like how humans used to arrange their social experience. And you'll get to there, they might not be there for 10 minutes. You just have to sit there with yourself. And like ultimately these chemicals, in order to become your closest friends, just want you to spend time with them. And you can only truly spend time with them when you're in the quiet and you can actually hear them talking.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in a world that tells us we have to do like 7 billion different morning routines and optimizing, those feel doable. It might feel difficult, but like you can't tell me those are not doable. And I know you practice what you preach. You're doing this with your partner, and you do these things. And you know, I don't have a screen-free bedroom yet, so this is a good reminder. I plugged my phone in a little ways away, but it's still there. So this is good for me as well. And you know, I can't stress enough. Just try these things. There's no harm in trying them. So, TJ, I appreciate you so much, man. And, you know, I highly recommend all of our listeners, if this resonated with you, go buy the book, The Dose Effect. And where else can people find you? I know you're big on Instagram. You're writing on Substack now.
Yeah, I always find it like somewhat ironic at the end of these conversations to be like, just head over to Instagram, have a quick scroll over there. But yeah, I am on Instagram.
I will say your content has gotten me off of Instagram a few times. I think you're now synonymous in my brain where it's like, oh shit, TJ's gonna get mad at me. I gotta get off it.
I know, you just see it and you think he's gonna tell me to put this down. Yeah, at TJ Power on Instagram if you want to use it less. And I'm doing Substack at TJ Power. And actually, like, one of the new things we're doing, which I'm super excited about, is like part of the whole lane of these chemicals is consuming longer form content, which is why I was curious about Substack, and your article is what brought me into that app for the first time. And so we're now doing a YouTube channel, my partner and I, where we're doing like longer form videos talking about like exactly how we're living our life. And it's super fun. It feels really creative. And we actually like bought a camera so that we don't have to use like our phones anymore. And it like really disconnects you from like the instantaneous nature of the phone. And that's at TJ and Georgia. And yeah, we're just like sharing a more truthful, very honest, realistic look at how we're managing this stuff. So that could be fun to watch if you're into that kind of thing.
Cool. I'm going to check it out. All right, brother. Well, thanks for hanging with me. And to all our listeners, appreciate you. And we'll see you next week.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.